Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So I decided to make a deck profile for the Armored Xyz variant of Zoodiac because I did end up pulling a full Armored Dark Knight Lancer from my openings of the most recent selection pack, because we do have another one coming out very, very soon here. But yeah, I wanted to make use of this because I pulled it, and you know, there's a lot of different decks that you could potentially slot in the Armored Xyz package. One of them being actually Sharks, like the rank 4 water deck. You could definitely do that. We have seen in viewer specials Phantom Knights is another very good vehicle for this Armored Xyz package. But I decided to try it out here with Zoodiacs because I really like Zoodiac. I think it's a really cool deck, and I also think that it is very well positioned in this particular meta, being able to play so many hand traps just very naturally. I usually like to pair Zoodiac with Kashtira. I think it's a really, really nice engine. They both complement each other and play well together very well. But again, I want to try out the Armored Xyz package, which does offer some unique disruption in the form of Lancer, being able to attach the opponent's monsters as a material, and of course you do gain a lot of advantage off of the Xyz Armor Fortress, being able to add the 2 Xyz armor cards, and of course it is the trap card on the opponent's turn that lets you go into the Lancer there. So that is pretty cool. I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to remember if we had a game where we summoned the Lancer. I think we have at least one. I'll try to start off with that one here. But yeah, no. As far as this variant goes, after playing with it a bit, I don't know. I have to be fully honest. I do think the Kashtira variant is probably just better. Like, this was a pretty decent boost for the Zoodiac archetype, and that's not to say that the Armored Xyz cards are bad by any means. Certainly, they do play very well with this deck, and again, in general, do offer some pretty unique disruption. But I don't know. It's like, you know, when it comes down to it, the Kashtira variant, not only, I like the disruption that Unicorn Finrare offer, also the ability to go into the Arise Heart line I think is really, really good. But again, it has been a while since I've done a more like pure Zoodiac deck, and while we are playing the Armored Xyz stuff, this is very much like a pure Zoodiac deck, right? We're on just like, not max Zoodiac monsters of course, but we're on 3 of each Whiptail, Thoroughblade, and Ram because they're all pretty important for comboing, and they're the best of the Zoodiac monsters. Of course, 1 Rapier as well. It's limited, otherwise we would absolutely be jamming 3 copies of it. But also we are playing Desires, which I do think is pretty good in this deck, so with that regard, I wanted to also be maxing out on a lot of our Zoodiacs or ways to search Zoodiacs, right? Like, there's a lot of builds that only play 1 Ram, which I definitely don't think is bad. I think I've played 1 Ram a lot in the past, but I definitely don't want to be in a position where I Desires and banish it, because Ram is actually pretty important for doing a lot of the combos that this deck is capable of doing here. So yep, because we are playing Shifter, which is like one of the main draws of this deck for me, Shifter being very good, not just in general, but very much so in this format. We are on triple Ghost Warner. We're still playing a couple of Veilers on top of that. I did consider playing like a different hand trap or maybe triple tack instead of the 2 Veilers here, because again, we are on Shifter, but Shifter is really our only banish card, and I think there was actually a game that came up where I did have Veiler and Shifter, but it ultimately didn't end up mattering too much. It's a pretty like niche situation to be in, right? Where you not only happen to open both Veiler and Shifter, but you need to do both on like the same turn. So, but yeah, no, rocking the triple Ghost Warners again because we are on the banish cards. I must say, I did put off crafting the Ghost Warners for quite some time, but I'm very glad that I did now, because particularly in decks that plays Shifter, this is so important in this meta in particular, right? Because Monster Effect Negation is at a premium. As you've seen many decks jamming as many Imprims and Veilers as they can, Ghost Warner is also a very good option for negating these Snake Eyes monsters. It only negates a monster when it is special summoned, so the way to use this against Snake Eye is either on Ash when they summon it off of like Original Sin, or if they start by normal summoning Ash, then you probably want to wait until Oak, I would say, and then when they special summon Oak, you can Ghost Warner it, and that will not only negate the effect to bring a monster back, but also then they can't do the other effects, because that will also be negated as well. So, yeah, Ghost Warner very good in this meta, again, especially if you're on a Shifter deck, because you can't Veiler under Shifter. This card has to go to the graveyard. Same is actually true of Droll, but Droll is such a unique hand trap that is also, I think, very good, in general, but also right now. That, well, I don't know if I'd say it's very good right now, it's at least pretty good right now. But do know that this also cannot be used while you are under Shifter, or just a banish effect in general, right? So, for the extra deck, I do have a couple of cards here that I would like to ideally be other things. Those being, well, mainly it's just the Donner Dagger for hire, honestly. Like, if I had a third Trident, it would be a third Trident. If I had the Infinitrack, let me look it up here. I think it's Megaclops, his name. Infinitrack. Yeah, if I had the Megaclops, this Donner would probably be a Megaclops. I think there's one other card. Oh, Vespanado is the other slot I was kind of like, on. But I will say Vespanado does actually come up a decent amount of the time. So, I don't think this card is bad by any means. But Donner Dagger for hires, I don't think this is the ideal 15th slot. Again, if I was willing to invest UR crafts materials into this deck, it'd probably be a third Trident. Or honestly, it'd probably just be the Megaclops instead. It's a little niche, but it can definitely come up, and it is definitely very hard to out for certain decks as well. Yeah, so as far as what I think of this deck overall in the current meta, I think this is probably this particular Armored Xyz variant of Zoodiac is a pretty solid, I'd say it's mid-rogue, but I do think Kashtira Zoodiac has the potential to be high rogue, or at least higher up on the rogue scale than this. That's not to say this is a bad deck, just that, I don't know, I don't even want to say that I was disappointed by the performance. I thought the deck played fine. I just think that other variants I've tried in the past have been better. But, again, this does offer some unique perspective as far as what the Armored Xyz package can do. And we'll start with the game where we show off Lancer in action here. So, let's break this list down card by card, and then look at those games. We're on, let's see, 2 Effect Veiler, 3 Joel and Lockbird, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, 1 Zoodiac Rapier, 3 Zoodiac Whiptail, 3 Zoodiac Thoroughblade, 3 Zoodiac Rambram, 2 Dimension Shifter, 2 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Pot of Desires, 1 Armored Xyz, 3 Fire Formation Tenki, 3 Zoodiac Barrage, 3 Infinite Permanents, and then 1 Full Armored Xyz. And that's going to be our 40-card deck there. For the extra deck, we're on 1 number F0 Utopic Future, 1 number F0 Utopic Draco Future, 2 Zoodiac Tiger Mortar, 2 Zoodiac Trident, 1 Zoodiac Borbo, 1 Zoodiac Hammer Kong, 2 Zoodiac Shockanine, 1 Joel Driver Vespanado, 1 Xyz Armor Fortress, 1 Full Armor Dark Knight Lancer, 1 Divine Arsenal Ah, Zeus Sky Thunder, and then finally 1 Donner Dagger for hire. There's our list. Let's see some gameplay now. Yeah, so our first opponent's going to be on a super heavy Samurai Pendulum pile. We're going to see more of the Pendulum pile side of it, though, than the super heavy Samurai stuff. But if I recall correctly, this should be the game where we do show off the Armored Xyz line in action here. Yep, this opening hand is very good. Any hand where you open Rapier is phenomenal. And honestly, normally I would have led by Shiftering here, but the Rapier does need to send stuff to the yard, and I do want to use that to set up Trident plus the Lancer. When doing research for this video, I used a couple of YouTube videos, but I also saw a write-up on Master Duel Meta from iPhones. It wasn't like a guide, it was like a deck list posted with a couple of notes. In the notes, iPhones said that you can, if you open Whiptail plus Rapier, you can actually end on double Trident plus the Lancer, but I was very much winging this combo line mid-game, and I only ended on the 1 Trident. I couldn't figure out, mid-game how to actually summon the 2nd Trident. I don't know if it's with the, Armored Xyz stuff, but, if anyone's watching who is able to enlighten me on that, I would be very curious to know. So yeah, we can, so basically what we're doing here is we're turning one of our Zoodiac Xyzes into the Xyz Armor Fortress, but the reason I did Hammer Kong on top of the Tiger Mortar and then the Fortress is to be able to add 2 Armored Xyz cards with different names from deck to hand. So we're definitely going to detach here and then add both the Armored Xyz spell and the Trap card. Now the Trap card is how we're going to not only summon out the Lancer on our opponent's turn, but also then equip with the effect. The spell card, I don't know if you just use this for follow-up, for using the Lancer on your next turn. It doesn't really seem to have too much application from what I can tell. I mean, aside from again, this is I think more of a follow-up card here than normal spell. I don't feel like this did too much for me turn 1, but again, I'm clearly missing something if I'm not putting down a 2nd Trident. Because again, iPhones over on Master Duel Meta definitely said that you could do that, so we'll see. But yeah, no, we're ending with the Xyz Armor Fortress up. Opponent's going to start by activating Zephyroth. I'm going to use Trident here. That might have been a little bit early. Oh, here was just, this is me not paying attention. This was a huge misplay on my part. I Ash Blossom the normal summon Magic Spectre Raccoon was like, oh, I have Droll in hand. Like, I just totally forgot I had the Droll in hand. Do as I say, not as I do. You should definitely be focused when you're playing games. I was definitely watching a YouTube video on the side while playing these duels. So, again, do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, here they're going to send out the Symphonic Warrior DJs to put out the Synth in the face-down defensive mode. I don't really want them to access Electromite here, so here's where I'm going to go full Armored Exceeds, the trap card, to go into the Lancer, right? Now I'm going to activate the full Armored Exceeds to equip. It doesn't exactly matter what you equip something to, just as long as something is equipped, you can do the Lancer. I think ideally I would have liked to have equipped something to Lancer, but the prompt for when... or for like how you decide, I don't know, it's kind of confusing to me. But yeah, anyway, it doesn't really matter what you equip to anything on the field, as long as something is equipped, right? So yeah, Zephyr's Providence, I definitely wish I would have drolled earlier, but it is what it is. So they're going to set up a Pentascale here, but they don't actually get to add anything off of their Yangzing Zephyr monster, nor do they get to draw off of the Electromite, which is a small consolation if nothing else there. Alright, so Electromite and Sorcerer are both going to activate here. Summoning out the Astrograph Sorcerer. Yeah, obviously Shifter, like if I'd known I was up against a Pen deck, we 100% would have Shiftered like every single time on turn 1, but yeah, like I said, well, I wanted to do the Lancer line, right? I wanted to do the full Armor Exceeds plays, so... Bringing back the Electromite. Electromite's going to pop to add back the Astrograph again, but it's already used its effect, so doesn't really do much there. Promethean Princess has locked them into fire, which means they have to go into Sprite Elf. And at this point, I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, I don't really care. Yeah, even at that point, my opponent concedes as they realize, like, I don't really have plays anymore. So, yeah, I should have drolled earlier. I think that was my big misplay for this game. But otherwise, I think this is a pretty textbook example. Well, again, the other misplay is, again, apparently you can summon out 2 Trident if you open Rapier plus Whiptail. If I figure that line out in between recording this and when the video goes up, I'll throw it in like the description or maybe a pinned comment. But if anyone who is more knowledgeable about this deck could enlighten me, and all of us really, on how to summon out that second Trident, that would definitely be greatly appreciated. Because you can only summon 1 Trident per turn by its own effect. So, anyway, let's take a look at the next game here. Alright, our next duel is going to be against Kashtira. Kashtira. It's funny, I almost put up a Kashtira deck profile, but then I remembered, oh yeah, Unicorn's about to go to 2, and the build I was on had 3, so... But playing that build, I was like, this deck is already so bricky, and Unicorn's going to 2? It's like, ugh. I feel like, pure Kashtira is going to have a bit of a struggle once Unicorn gets semi-limited, so I'm going to start off by Veiloring the Unicorn. I thought about using Droll instead, but I was like, if they have follow-up, maybe we can Droll afterward. Depending on what it is, of course. They do have follow-up, but it's only Riseheart, banishing Ogre after they set 2, so it looks like this is going to be an Era pass, which doesn't particularly scare me, because we can just go into a Zeus, and Era can only stop destruction, right? So they can't actually stop a Zeus from board wiping. Or rather, have the Era survive the Zeus board wipe. So, opponent flips up Macro. At first I'm thinking to myself, that's fine. I don't care about Macrocosmos, right? I'll get a battle with the Borbo and then go into Tiger Mortar. Now, as I was building this Xyz chain, and they're going to call by, I think here because they realized I was about to Zeus them. Now, as I'm building up this Xyz chain, at some point, I think maybe here, I noticed my opponent was starting to get past priority, so I'm like, okay, I think they have a Zeus. Or, I mean, not a Zeus, a Nibiru. But I'm like, yeah, I'll just go for the Zeus anyway. Just force out the Nib here, right? Well, because, like, if I don't make the Zeus, then they're just not going to Nib, and then I have a really hard time being able to deal with my opponent's board, so we have to do it either way. I decided to go into the Dryden here just to see if they would, like, Nib sooner, but, like, no, they didn't. So, they want me to get my Zeus out, so that way I don't have access to it later. Now, okay, here's something, right? I could have chained Zeus to the effect of Nib, and what that would have done is it would have gotten rid of Macrocosmos, but it also would have made my token a lot smaller. It only would have been 3k, 3k, because then only Zeus would have been left on the field when Nibiru attributes everything. However, I totally forgot that Droll has to be sent. If I'd realized that, then I definitely would have wiped the macro. I think it would have been worth the loss of stats on the token, definitely, to get rid of the macro so that way I can actually use my Droll and Lockbirds. I just didn't even think about it until the Zeus had already, or the Nib had already wiped the board, and I was like, oh yeah, that would have been the reason to keep it. But if I recall correctly, yeah, my opponent did not top deck anything relevant. I'm just going to switch the token to defense mode, and in a classic case of, wow, drawing Droll and Lockbird while I have, my opponent has macro up. No, in a classic case of Nibiru's everywhere, it's like, you can nib your opponent's board, but the big question is, can you out the token? But yeah, drawing that third Droll was like such a slap in the face. I could have summoned Thoroughblade to just do lethal here, but I'm like, I could also just make Vestment auto. I don't think it really matters how I do it here. I could have also gone into Xyz Armor Fortress and attacked for lethal with that too, for what it's worth, but yeah, I really wasn't too... I mean, maybe I should have thought about it a little bit more. My opponent's last card could have been... Like, what could it have been, honestly? Well, it could have been a Nib. Maybe another Nib? I don't know. It's weird enough for Cash to be playing one Nib, so to have a second one. But in any case, we did end up managing to close out the game with a W there. Yeah, let's see the next game. Okay, so this next opponent is on just about the weirdest Snake Eye list I think I've ever seen. We're not going to see them do anything too wild. It's going to be mostly like regular Snake Eye stuff happening from our opponent. But I saw like Toon World and Comic Hand in there, and I was like, huh? Like, huh? So that's a pretty interesting take on the deck, but okay. Yeah, I'm going to take the first turn here, and with a hand like this, I'm just going to end up going into Trident Pass. I don't have to lead with the Shifter here, because I'm not putting anything in my graveyard, which is very, very nice when that happens. They're going to lead with Normal Summon Poplar to add the Divine Temple. At this point, I am going to end up throwing out the Dimension Shifter, right? Opponent's going to chain Econ, which is another pretty interesting tech of theirs. They seem to really like taking control of stuff here. They really wanted my Trident, so I decided to pop it. I don't know if that was right, though, honestly. Following up with Wanted. Okay, Maxi here was definitely a misplay. There was no reason for me to Maxi. I totally just didn't even think about the fact that my opponent can't even summon Diabell because of the Shifter here. So that was just a huge, huge misplay on my part. Well, I was also a little concerned with the Econ in response to the Shifter. I was like, do they still have plays here? Maybe I should Maxi, but yeah, no, in hindsight, I think I definitely should have just not. I should have held on to it. So yeah, they're going to set up the Divine Temple, or the Flamberge with the Divine Temple and pass. We do rip another Thoroughblade here, so they're going to get to summon out Flamberge and then also Poplar with the Flamberge effect later as well. That's going to give them a search, but I do still get to Zeus here. So let's see if this ends up being enough. Yeah, here comes the Poplar. They're adding Original Sin. That's fine. I think they added Original Sin with the Diabell too, didn't they? So she have two in hand at this point. Oh no, they didn't use Diabell, right, because I shifted, of course. Okay, Shakadine, yep, building up the Zoodiacs as usual here. I'm just gonna Zeus and then use my first board wipe now, because the Shifter is still up, so it'll not only get rid of the field spell, but also banish both Poplar and Flamberge, which is, of course, very, very good for me. Yeah, it would have been much better to have the Maxi in hand here, too. But Ash Blossom and Nib, like, that might still get us there. We'll see. Okay, up here's the Zeus, activating effect. And passing over to our opponent here. Okay, let's see what they've got. Pitch Jet Synchron for Diabell. So I'm definitely keeping that Original Sin in hand in mind. Of course, when they set Subversion, I have to Zeus here before they flip it up and then push my Zeus back. So that does eat one of my negations here. They're going to normal summon Oak and bring back Poplar. I didn't Zeus right away. I figured, like, they'll either Original Sin, I can Zeus later, or they'll Poplar for a Link Karibo, and then I can Zeus now. Excuse me. And now they're... Oof. Now their hand is, like, 2 Original Sin and 2 Unknowns. Oh, they do have the Jet Synchron, which they can use to access Original Sin. And they actually use the Graveyard effect, which kind of surprised me a bit. But either way, we can Ash Blossom it. Not a big deal here. So Link Karibo is going to get the Jet Synchron. I guess that's just to make sure they don't take damage next turn. Makes sense. And yeah, that's all they have. So I would have loved to have top deck some more action here. Got an Imperm instead. Although my extract is a little sparse, we do still have a Chalkanine, as well as the Xyz Armor Fortress. I lift that intentionally, so that way, if I top deck a Zoodiac monster, I can still go into a Zoodiac rank 4, and then pivot into the Armored Xyz package, right? Also, if we make another Xyz monster, we could potentially go into an F-Zero here as well. Opponent's going to Diabell, set Wanted, I believe, right? Yep, here is the original Sin. They have Snake Eye Ash. I have Imperm, but I always brain fart on the Link Kuriboh. That's like my biggest... I need to get over that playing against Snake Eye. I always forget about the Imperm, or I mean the Link Kuriboh when I go to Imperm or Valor the Ash. That's a huge mistake I need to start working on. Yeah, this game, I don't know. I definitely could have played much better. Well, especially me having Max C. I think could have very easily been the difference here. I mean, obviously, Max C is a very powerful card, especially against this deck, but you'll see why here in a bit. Spoiler alert, this game, I'm not going to end up drawing gas for like a really, really long time here, which is really unfortunate. Yeah, there's another nib there, so... And the Link Kuriboh can just keep cycling itself and blanking the attacks of my Zeus here. So, like, I'm not making progress, like, damage-wise. And with my draws, I'm really not making any progress, like, game state-wise either. So, not a good position to be in. I'm going to have to pass back over to my opponent here. Have they pitched the Comic Hand? At one point in the middle of their turn, they did discard a Comic Hand with, or send a Comic Hand with Diabell. And let's see if they do that this turn. No, okay, normal summon Snake Eye Ash. Because I remember seeing that mid-game and being like, huh? That's kind of weird. Like, the Econ is, like, not regular, but it's not the weirdest thing, right? Like, Econ is actually a pretty good card. It's one of those cards that is, like, for a lot of decks, it's just barely not good enough to make it. But there are a lot of good decks where it's also good enough to make it. Also, the Striker variant of this deck plays Econ, the Sky Striker Snake Eye deck, so that's why I didn't really bat my eye too much at Econ. Comic Hand, which we still haven't seen yet, Comic Hand is a little bit different. I think my opponent really, like I said earlier, just likes taking control of monsters. So here I'm waiting on the nib. Yeah, Flamberge just coming out. They're pushing back the Zeus, and here they threatened to go to battle phase. So I'm gonna drop my Nibiru here, even though they can Flamberge and summon stuff back. And I'm kind of surprised my opponent didn't OTK me on the last turn. Actually, like, what do they have? They have like Link Kuriboh, Diabell, and like Poplar. I'm like, that should be enough materials to go into like some kind of a line other than just pass, which I think is what they did, but. And here, this is a little bit, I don't know, maybe my opponent here is just kind of new to Snake Eye, but making the formula here I thought was a bit odd. Like, yeah, with this board state too, I feel like they could have done more here, but yeah, there's Ghost Mourner is not going to do it. Again, I'm stuck in this perpetual Link Kuriboh loop. I'm actually just going to hit the fast forward button here, because now I'm the victim of the old Nibiru, like, oh, you can nib the board, but can you out the token? And I can't. I actually cannot out the token that I've made here, so. And then they're summoning the Diabell. They already have damage on board, or lethal on board, but they Silvara here. I'm not really sure why. I guess to set up the subversion anyway. And then, yeah, I just conceded. But they could have just battled the token over Nib and then Diabell directly. And that should have been lethal, right? 58, or 88 minus 3k is 58, plus 25. 58 plus 25 is 83. So, yeah, that would have been lethal. But yeah, no, that was a very... Did they not send... Hang on, where's Comic Hand? I know I saw Comic Hand at some point mid-game. No, I thought that was it there. Hang on, this is going to drive me crazy. There it is right there for Jet Synchron. Comic Hand, just out of nowhere. I was like, wait, huh? I did triple take when I saw that. But one more game we have left, so we will check that out before we finish out the video here. Okay, our final opponent's going to be playing Mikanko. And this is going to be a relatively short game, but it does show, if nothing else, that one thing I really like about Zoodiac is that it's a very, very good... deck at playing through just a bunch of BS that the opponent has, right? So, like, here I'm going to lead through with the Pot of Desires. Opponent's going to respond with D-Shifter. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And Maxi, which is definitely less fine, right? I mean, it's less fine, but at the same time, it's like, it's still not that big of a deal. Although the deck does do a lot of special summoning, of course, with the, like, Xyz stacking, one other thing about it is that you can definitely just, like, I don't know, I could have normal summoned Ram and made a Trident here anyway, giving my opponent one draw. Usually under Max C, I will do that. I'll just go for a Trident and give them one draw. But here, like, I have double Imperm. I'm like, this is fine. I'm just gonna, like, set set the double Imperm pass. I still activated Tenki for Rapier here, because on the off chance I top decked another Tenki on the next turn, right? So... And this is going to be a very, very short duel because, yeah, they just immediately conceded. Which is kind of wild to me, being a Makonko. Although, I guess being a Makonko deck, I didn't really have something face up for them to battle, did I? Ah, that's the old Makonko trick of, like, oh, you can just pass against this deck, and then a lot of times they don't really have anything they can do. So, yeah, setting a monster is effectively the same as passing here, because Makonko needs to be able to battle... Well, a lot of the time they also need to put the Psychic Blade, the equip spell, on something too, don't they? Or like the Mask... Or Axe of Fools, not Mask of Fools, Axe of Fools. In any case, even if my opponent had plays, like we have double Imperm, I think that should have definitely been enough, especially with the follow-up here. So, yeah, I think that's going to go ahead and do it for these games. Thank you so very much for watching. Let's go ahead and just move now to our outro. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for supporting there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details again will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description linked below is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.